is this just fantasy? Yeah. Well, no, it isn't. It is a collection of the best in contemporary fantastic art. So I first came upon Spectrum like, I don't know, 20 or so years ago, maybe more. And yeah, it's just a curated collection of the best contemporary fantastic art. I don't think it was. I'm not sure if it was yearly or if it was just every couple of years or what the increment of time. But it's been running for a long time. This is Spectrum 17. So I wanted to do this one just because I wanted to kind of do something that was just focused on just art as it relates to fantasy, not necessarily like comic art, although there will be some comic artists in here. But I wanted to just kind of do a little overview of, yeah, more or less just the concept of fantasy art. Doing it something that's very current and modern. This is from in 2010, so real brand spanking new. Let's just get right into it. So right off the bat, we have this really cool piece by Justin Gerard, which is helpful that they have the names of these things. Have what appears to be a depiction of the Battle of Five Armies from The Hobbit. We have the Eagles. That's one army. We have Beorn and the dwarves. We have some goblins. I guess maybe this might be an elf. Oh no, it's a dwarf too. But like anyway, it is, yeah, it's definitely that. And just amazing little figure work. Just love how like the dark foreground of the goblins here. Love the misty faded distance back here, which allows characters like Beorn to really stand out. Love this deep blue cloak here. Really catches the eye. There's so much great movement in here. And if you zero in on any moment, it's just going to read beautifully. And that's really what fantasy art for the longest time has been, and I'd say even in some ways continues to be, and that is the strong image, and in most cases the strong single image, because for a while, like let's say all you had was the cover of a book to tell you the mood, the atmosphere, the feeling, or any kind of visual sense of, say, a novel, or even for role playing games like D&D. There were little spot illustrations inside to like depict different monsters, but all you had was mostly that the just strong singular images to try to invite you into an entire world, an entire world that's filled with like drama and characters and everything. And I feel like Justin Gerard here really nailed it. Giving a little tribute to Al Williamson, who is an amazing artist, and I'm gonna see if I can get any kind of reason I can to show his work. This right here, not necessarily fantasy, but fantasy adjacent, we'll say. It's Valor, which was like a anthology book of just kind of old military stories. I mean, so like Greeks and Romans and bygone eras and stuff, and just really great detail as far as like how they're dressed, and but also the body language is great. All the fabric reads, the landscape reads. It's just Uh, it's inspirational, exemplary. Like look at all this right in here. And this is like a reproduction of a page that he actually drew on. So all these marks he's actually making. Just love like just the little back here for like bushes and stuff, and yet it reads that way. If you don't, if you're not, if you zero in on that, it looks like nothing. But if you see it in the context of the panel, it looks like what he wants it to, which is kind of like shrubbery and stuff. And honestly, that's some of my favorite stuff. One thing I will say, there will be mixtures of sci-fi in here, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to just try to skip through that because this is just fantasy. Okay, so here's some art here that's very, very much fantasy. And we have here yeah, so some art from EverQuest over here, which is a game I've never played. Just gonna be honest. Definitely up my alley, but something that like I just didn't have a good enough computer at the time. But again, another thing that's like a strong image. Like clearly, like it's designed for like the jacket of like a book, or not a book necessarily, but like a game. So probably this was the front with like room for titles up here, and this is the back, maybe like a little block of text right here. Just guessing. But again, the painting is very much tied to the history of fantasy art. And, this is evidently an oil on panel. And that's just something that I find amazing, is this idea that this is an oil painting. This is an oil painting, just like any, just about any painting you're going to see, like historical one that's in the Louvre or in the Met or in any great museum. And this is an oil painting as much as those, and it has a lot of connection to kind of classic paintings, but it is for a video game. And yeah, just really great figure work, really great, like interesting costuming. It's definitely evoking the kind of tropiness of the fantasy genre. Like there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing here that's super distinctive. I feel like this character sort of is like, when I think of EverQuest, I think of somebody like that, but it's a woman in a I don't know, like what, a genie or belly dancer costume. I don't know. And that's another thing that's big in the fantasy genre is, it's got an issue with women and how they're dressed consistently. But you know what? It's for a certain audience, and all sorts of people can dig it. And I'm not here to shame anybody. So, yeah, I mean, it's an excellent painting. Love how hot this fire looks. But don't worry, she's casting magic. She's protected. But yeah, it's all around really nice. This over, and then moving on to more dragons here. We have, apparently it's just called Silverwayne, Lucas Graciano. This speaks to what I would say is another thing that I've noticed about really notable fantasy art, and that is there is a haze to it. There's a bit of mystery to it, just because I feel like with the fantasy genre, it invites the reader to add to it themselves, to imagine with the author or with the creator of the work. Like it's asking you to imagine with them, and I feel like it's really smart in the fantasy art to leave some space for that interpretation, leave some room at the fringe. Like you can be specific with characters, but the world itself, you should have some openness to like have the viewer or the reader add to it themselves. But yeah, really nice. Yeah, really love the just like the tones in this. It's really nice. And then we also have just a real wild time up here. I really love the quality of this painting too. It's a digital painting, but still a painting. This wild guy here, all these spiky things. And this also has a lot of like mystery to it. And you have this crazy shit in here. Look at this person there. Like it makes me intrigued, and I think that's what great fantasy art should do. Is it should invite you to want to know more, but yet not tell you everything. I feel like being too specific in fantasy really comes as a detriment. It becomes, keeping score, keeping tabs on power levels and stuff, which works for a game, I suppose. But as far as storytelling and world building, it's not as interesting to me. Another, another lovely painting. Uh, this one, another oil painting. I love the blow up here. But just like, yeah, look at the attention to detail on like that looks like a real wolf, you know? And, these dragons are have a lot of character to them. And I also love the friendliness of them. And I love, this witch or, you know, magic user of some variety here, like conversing with them. I don't know. It speaks of something that's, more whimsical, more um, open, more fun. It's like a fun world that this is depicting, not so much a very drab serious one. Which I feel like if there's a criticism to be had about fantasy art, it is that it can be too serious, or rather, the fantasy genre as a whole. It can be a little self serious, which I'm not saying that it can't be serious at all. I would just say that uh, at some point, I feel like the writers and creators behind fantasy projects need to take a step back and realize this is also fun. This also can be a fun place for a person to be imaginatively. Um, yeah. This is a big name to remember. Charles Vess. He is going to come up a lot on this channel, specifically because he is one of the best. Just such a great sensitivity when it comes to depicting, like natural forms, like this tree here. Great figure work. There is, like again, we're talking about like there's like a haze, or like a mystery to the rest of this forest, and yet like it is a specific place, and there's all these little details in the drawing that like get your imagination going, like these little eyes in here, and this like you don't even have to know the story behind it. It could just be an image that gives you a story. So yeah, Charles Vess is one of the masters. Just I love every delicate thing. We're gonna look at some comics he's illustrated, some illustrations he's provided for other works of fiction, and just his fantasy art. So yeah, he is gonna come back multiple times. And while we're here, just gotta look at this little guy. I mean, have you guys heard of cuteness aggression? Because it's pretty fucking cute. So we're gonna be here all day if I stop and talk about everything, but you know what? I might have all day. Um, Another great illustration here. Um, Looks like a bunch of dwarves fighting here. I mean, this could be The Hobbit as well. I don't know. Hobbit's very. All the Tolkien works are very easy to want to illustrate for if you're interested in fantasy. Real grotesque looking figures here. I really love that. But just, yeah, great composition. And also another one, like, what an idea is, like, looks like harvesting a dead dragon, like half rotting, like that. That is really something. That is a really cool concept. And then this guy, what a character, man. Guillermo Gonzalez on all of these pieces. Really great work. Really love it. Again, we're going to be here all day. So, but just a note, I guess, that here we have a literal chimera. So chimera can be used to describe just any combination creature, like a dragon. A dragon itself can be seen as a chimera because it's like, oh, it's got like bird features, it's got snake features, and maybe like a lion or an eagle. I don't know. It's just a combo creature, right? So this is an actual chimera, like Greek mythology style. Like this is how it's described, and um, yeah, it's always interesting when in fantasy they invoke mythological creatures like from our world's mythology. Like here, like this is an interesting example because it is like a minotaur, or bull-headed character mixed with I would say like an orc or a goblin. I'd say probably an orc or half orc or something like that. Um, but I think that's it's interesting to me just because it's kind of semi mixing genres. Although one could make the argument that mythology is under the umbrella of fantasy, and honestly, with the stuff that we're gonna be eventually talking about on this channel, different like comics and such, mythology is definitely going to factor into it. There's going to be mythology, and so mixing it isn't the biggest thing, but it is a very common thing, it seems, especially in like role playing games. And this looks like, yeah, player's handbook. So yeah, um, definitely that. Between these two, I mean, I am drawn to this just because it's a little more old school, a little more analog. But yeah, great figures, great posing, great sense of light. Yeah, it's awesome. This is another name to remember is William Stout. He's going to be somebody we come back to. I've got a couple of art books of his that are specifically fantasy oriented, but William Stout is one of the artists that really influences my own work, and I'm just a huge fan of. Really pretty rendition of like a not so typical mermaid. We got a two-tailed mermaid here, which I don't know if I've seen much of outside of like maybe there's some like Greek imagery of two-tailed mermaids, but just yeah, love these. Just all of the little like spindly flourishes and all the fish and stuff like that that just make it feel like a living world. Even if it's like a posed kind of image, it still feels like it's in a real world or its own world. So, I mean, this makes me think of Little Mermaid with like her little fish friend here. Now, if Little Mermaid looked like that, I mean, there'd be a lot more people obsessed with fish. Here's another name, Michael William Kaluta. Kaluta is another master. It's just impossible line work. Just amazing figure work and just such a great, strong image. This zebra-bodied centaur. That's something that, like, I don't know if I've ever seen that before, except for in this image, because I've seen it before. But yeah, just all these nice little details. Looks like she's leading a charge here. Like it's just evocative of a larger story, and all these little details. And again, I don't need to know or read the story beyond this. I can come up with one in my head, and I think that's what really strong fantasy art does. Is it gives you all you need to continue on with the story. And what's something I will say about this book and the judges that put it together? I really respect the variety of work that's in here. I really feel like there's just, there's people who use line art, there's people who are making paintings, there's people who are using some like photo and collage elements. Here's another Kaluta piece. There's a lot of variety. There's digital artists in here. There's oil painters. There's mixed work. It's really great seeing that. It really is, because it's embracing that great art. It's like great fantasy art doesn't all just look like one thing, which can be frustrating in other collections where it looks like kind of generic concept art kind of stuff, which concept art is an art in and of itself. I'm not bashing it. I will just say that a lot of it, stylistically at least, can look very similar to each other, to where it's difficult to distinguish one artist from another. And I mean, that works well for the industry, but it doesn't really work well as like an exciting or interesting body of work to look at necessarily. But in talented work nonetheless, just maybe not outstanding for, the purposes that we have. I mean, fantastical, yes, but maybe not fantasy. But Peter Tsebe, if you have never seen his work, please do. Or Sev, I don't know. Just gorgeous paint, just gorgeous watercolor, ink and watercolor. I would love to have his talent, honestly. Another great watercolor piece right here. And again, evocative of so much, because there's, and like, just these trees are so incredible. Her expression here, like it all sets a scene for you, and it makes me want to know what happens next. And again, it's the great job of any illustrator for any genre, really, but fantasy has employed it for a very long time. Yeah, this is amazing. William Stout. Yeah, that's an amazing Dilophosaurus. By the way, he loves dinosaurs. And I love dinosaurs. Hence why I love him. Easily said. You'll get a better look at this later, as I do have an art book of his. Not fantasy, fantasy of a kind, but a comic artist that I really love is Paulo Rivera. Somebody whose talents both in line art and in painting I'm just jealous of, but highly recommend looking into anything he puts his pen to. It's really great stuff. You can never get away from him. Conan. We're going to be seeing some more of him from this channel coming soon. It's just a fact. Robert E. Howard really, condemned all of us to just decades and decades of people adapting his work and using his characters for stories. It's never ending. So fantasy sculpture is something that is, I don't trade in as much because I don't sculpt, but this is um, an amazing piece that is a combination of work by Charles Vess, who I pointed out before, and I guess sculptor David Spence, a bronze sculpture of I'm guessing like Titania from Midsummer. Because it says Midsummer Play is the name of it, so Midsummer Night's Dream probably. What else would it be? And from what I can see of it, it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know what else to say. It's just impressive. Another Battle of the Five Armies, I'm guessing. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Battle Under the Mountain. Yeah, goblins and elves and dwarves and eagles and a bear. What else would it be? A lonely mountain? Yeah, just when you're dedicating yourself to an oil on paper painting, you definitely take the time to pose everything properly and to make it look great. Wow. Alright, so this is a name that's important here. Mr. Bob Eggleton. So Bob Eggleton has done work for basic Dungeons and Dragons and adjacent books and such for a long time. Longest time. Yeah, you've definitely seen his work. Man loves himself a dragon and just paints the fuck out of them. Lovely, lovely image here. And just there's sometimes where an illustration or a painting, like say this one, it feels like it's trying to be photographic in how it represents its figures and everything. Like this is definitely like this used like a model to get the lighting and everything and the folds of the dress right, and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But I'm more engaged with stuff that is interpretations of things, or rather in a little more inventive, a little more stylized. um, I don't need something to look 100% realistic, and in fact, if it looks too realistic, I'm a little taken away from it. That's a personal preference. It's not like categorical that like it's better if it's not super realistic. It's just I prefer it. And hey, look, it's Charles Vess. I guess before I move on from it, this is one of the most interesting renditions of Beowulf and Grendel I've ever seen. That's a feat. That's a story that we're definitely going to be coming back to, and yeah, it's a foundational poem slash story that actually we have people like J.R.R. Tolkien to thank for it being preserved to this day, because he thought he saw literary and historical merit in preserving it. But this is interesting because Grendel's never described in the poem, or never. It's the words used to describe Grendel are often very similar to ones used to describe Beowulf, but it's not clear. He's clearly not, like, he's probably not just a person. He's clearly, there's something else off about him, and he's some kind of monster. He could be a troll, he could be a giant. But this is like, yeah, this really intimidating canine creature, which is, yeah, again, not something that I've ever seen before as far as how Grendel's been depicted. But this is their big fight in Harrot Hall, where Beowulf strips down entirely naked to fight his enemy. So that I always thought that was just a hell of a power play on the part of Beowulf. And that's it. That has been the Spectrum 17 collection. So this is, yeah, the what was considered the best contemporary fantastic art by the jury for Spectrum. And gotta say, great collection of work. Lots to enjoy, lots to love, and also lots of some of my favorite artists are represented there, or at least some of them. And yeah, if if you like strong imagery and you love fantasy, hopefully you would dig my comic, Sidequesters. It is there's 8 issues out currently. It is a fantasy story about mostly two people becoming friends, but also having to deal with, you know, fighting folks and dealing with dragony things. You know, it's a world that is both similar to ours, but not the same. You know, of course, because it's, you know, a fantasy world. But yeah, I have 8 issues of it out. I also have a collected volume for it out. It's all 8 issues in one volume that you can buy. If you like the world that I create with Sidequesters, you may also like my Haxan anthologies, which are little collections of short stories that deal with magic users in the same world. And I am a just a fantasy nut. So I have 2 volumes of that available. If you like things that are a little more comic-y or traditional comic book, you may like 3-Panel Origin, my webcomic, where I take 3 panels to create a character and tell their origin. And it's usually something silly or awkward. So it's kind of akin to The Tick. I also have a book of short stories related to that available. And also, you know, a couple different sites I have art prints and stuff of art that I've made. Because I'm a living artist and I do art for a living. So if you can support me that way, I would really appreciate it. But also, if you just want to read my comics, they are available online for people to read, because that's also important to me too, is that people read it. Thank you so much for joining me on this little trip. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.